What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Jackal Games, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about my unpopular video game opinions. So I put a list together of my unpopular video game opinions, and I'm going to go through them. So let's get started with this video. The first one I'm going to get into is I like Silent Hill Homecoming. Looking at the perception of this game, it seems like most Silent Hill fans, they put this as the worst one in the series. A lot of people really don't like this game, and it has its issues. The graphic style isn't the best. Some of the characters could be stronger. The audio mixing has a lot of problems. It crackles with items you pick up, which I don't understand because older Silent Hill games didn't have this problem. There's a cutscene where this female character that's on the boat with Alex and Wheeler, her voice sound is lower when she talks compared to the other two. And this seemed to be a problem even with Silent Hill HD Collection, a lot of audio issues. I don't know if the same team that handled that made this, but whenever Konami made changes with people they were working with later on with Silent Hill, they got somebody in there that isn't the best with the audio. Because audio was never a problem with the older Silent Hill games. I also hate how a lot of most of the guns in the game, well, all the guns, you can only carry a decent amount of ammo with it. Like with one of the pistols, you can only have 18 bullets in your storage, and then there's only a few bullets in the gun. And I know, like survival horror games, you have to manage your ammo and stuff, but not a lot of survival horror games, you have to manage your ammo and resources, but in Silent Hill Homecoming, you can only carry a certain amount of ammo with guns, and you're limited to it. And it's even more strict on harder difficulties. And I just thought that was really stupid. And Pyramid Head is in the game, but he's only in there for like two cutscenes. He gets no boss fight, so he's wasted. And it's a shame because he looks really cool. But other than that, I really enjoyed the game personally. I don't hate it like a lot of other Silent Hill fans do. I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun to play. I like the weapons you get, the variety of them. I thought a lot of the creatures were cool, especially the ones that crawl. And it definitely was better than Silent Hill 4. I think Silent Hill 4 is the worst one in the series because the second half of that game is really boring as you go through the same areas again, and it just didn't feel like a Silent Hill game. And the main character sucked. Alex in here is definitely better than Henry in Silent Hill 4. And I like Silent Homecoming. I enjoyed it personally. I had a blast with it. I like the costumes in there that you can get. And I like what they did with the cult that you fight, especially near the end. It was pretty cool. I like the game. I don't hate it. I don't. I think it's like I said, it was a step up above four. And out of all the Silent Hill games that were being made after Team Silent was gone, this is the best out of the new ones. That's for sure. So personally, I like Silent Homecoming. I thought Alex was a cool character. I liked him. The endings in there are pretty cool. I didn't have an issue with it being similar to the movie. It didn't bother me at all. I didn't have an issue with the nurses being in there. Yeah, they're similar to Silent Hill 2 nurses, but you know what? Nurses were in Silent Hill 1. They were in Silent Hill Origins. It's just a part of the series. Pyramid Head was in there. Maybe they could have came up with their own thing like Downpour, but that stuff didn't bother me. It just didn't. So I like the game personally. Yeah, I think it's underrated. Another unpopular opinion is I'm not into old school Resident Evil games. Now, this is one I changed my mind on because back in the day, Resident Evil 4 was my first Resident Evil game, and I really enjoyed that game. I liked it, and I eventually tried the other Resident Evil games. I did like them, but as time has passed, as I've tried to go back to the older Resident Evil games, unless it's just some massive burnout, I can't get into the older ones. I'm talking about Resident Evil 0, 1, 2, 3, the originals, Code Veronica. The fixed camera angle ones, I just can't get into them. I really can't. I just don't enjoy them, and I can't get into them. I prefer the newer Resident Evils that are over the shoulder and first person, and I prefer the way survival horror games are made now. And I can't get into those. I've tried, but I can't get into them. I really can't. And yeah, it's the fixed camera angles. You know, Silent Hill had fixed camera angles of the older games, but at least they were more controllable. I think that's my biggest issue with them because that was my problem even when I went back to Onimusha 1, to be honest with you. Another unpopular opinion I have is Gears of War 3 is the best in the series, and it's my favorite one. Because when people talk about Gears of War, they usually say Gears of War 2 is the best, and that's what people's favorites usually are. And I like the first three Gears of War games are definitely the best, but I think Gears of War 3 is the best one in my opinion because I like the campaign, But what really makes Gears of War 3 special for me is around the time when Gears of War 3 came out in 2011, that's when I really was just getting started with having internet for the first time, experiencing online multiplayer, experiencing Xbox Live. And that was huge for me with Gears of War 3. And it was a blast. I had a lot of memories on there. I met a lot of cool people. I played that game so much, especially the Horde and multiplayer. Gears of War 3 is personally my favorite. Another unpopular opinion I have is Gears of War Judgment was the last good one. Now, Gears of War Judgment has issues. It's not as good as the first three. I hate that the locusts aren't playable in the multiplayer. Overrun's not a good replacement for Horde. And the controls to be more like Call of Duty, where you throw grenades with RP and you switch weapons with the Y button, you can only carry two guns. That stuff is really stupid. But compared to 4 and 5, I'll take this over them, especially the campaign. Because here's what I'll say about Gears of War Judgment. It's the last Gears of War game that actually has a good cast in your campaign because you got Baird, you got Cole, you got Paddock, and you got Sophia, and you got Loomis, who's a pretty good asshole type character that I like. And the Aftermath campaign is really good too. And that game had an interesting cast in the campaign, which is one of the things that was always good about Gears of War. Gears 4 and 5, while I do get enjoyment out of the multiplayer and the Horde, even though there's a lot of changes that I'm not big on with Horde, the campaigns suffer in Gears of War 4 and 5. Because Gears of War 4 has a boring ass cast of characters that are not that interesting in Gears of War 4, and you fight boring robots in the first two acts. At least you're not fighting robots in Gears of Judgment. And in Gears 5, the first act is phenomenal. If the rest of the game was like the first act, it would be a huge step up for the Gears of War series. But the only good part of Gears 5's campaign is Act 1 because they actually improved JD's character. It's linear. It seems like a really cool part of the campaign. I like Foz. There's just a lot of interesting stuff. And instead of continuing with that, we switch to Kate. We have a time skip and we play as her for the rest of the game. They make her such an important part of the series, and she's just a fucking lame character. She's unlikable. And I don't care for her. I don't care for Dell. And yeah, the campaigns of Gears 4 and 5, they just have awful casts, except for the first act of Gears 5. It's a damn shame. When they improved JD's character in Gears 5, he's not even the star. And I don't even know the direction they went with Gears 5 was stupid, honestly, because JD is the son of Marcus, who's the main character of the series. He should be the star of Gears 5, not fucking Kate. And, the whole death of Anya, who was JD's mom and Marcus's wife, they should have explored that in Gears 5. How did that affect Marcus and JD's relationship? What was the stuff going on where Dell finds out that Foz and JD were shooting protesters? All that cool stuff we could have had. But no, let's follow Kate, a boring ass character. That's why Gears of War Judgment, even with its problems, campaign wise, it's better than 4 and 5. It's the last one that actually had good characters in the campaign. So, yeah. Next unpopular opinion I'm going to get into is I'm not into Assassin's Creed. Out of the ones I played, I can see why people put 2 as the best, but I'm just not into the Assassin's Creed games. My biggest problem with them is I don't like the aesthetic of them. I don't like the style and the setting of them. I just don't like the way they feel gameplay wise and the areas they're set in. I just don't like them. I'm really not into them. I would pick Prince of Persia over them because I remember when I was younger and played some Prince of Persia, I did like that more. So I'm just not into Assassin's Creed. Can never really get into them. Not my thing. And plus, I'm not really big on stealth, and stealth is a part of those games. Another one I'm going to get into is Wu is my favorite kingdom in Dynasty Warriors. Now, when people talk about Dynasty Warriors, usually Wei is people's favorite kingdom. That's the one people like the most. And personally, Wu is my favorite kingdom in Dynasty Warriors because Sun Jian is my favorite character in Dynasty Warriors. He's my favorite leader. And growing up with the Dynasty Warriors games, I got into a lot of the characters of Wu, like Gan Ning, Huang Gai, and Sun Jian, Lu Meng. I like Sun Quan. I like Sun Ce. I like the family dynamic of the kingdom. And they're just my favorite kingdom. I like them the most out of everyone. And I guess also because, it's ironic they're my favorite kingdom because my favorite color is red, but I just like them the most personally. They're my favorite kingdom out of all of them in Dynasty Warriors. Yeah, another one I'm going to get into is Samurai Warriors 1 is my favorite entry in Samurai Warriors. When people talk about the best of Samurai Warriors and what their favorite one is, it's usually Samurai Warriors 2 and Samurai Warriors 4. Personally, Samurai Warriors 1 is my favorite, and I like that one the most because I like how it has that dark vibe that Dynasty Warriors 4 had. I like the art style of it. I like the voice actors the most out of all the Samurai Warriors games. I like how everybody has a campaign in that game, all the characters that were playable at least, and I like that even characters like Yoshimoto in the XL version and Goemon, they actually get to have a bunch of stages, so they even gave campaigns to characters that historically had really no importance. And that's what I like about the older Warriors games like this is they didn't just try to be realistic and go by historical accuracy. They had fun with the characters and just gave them campaigns rather than just this is how it goes. We're going to stay linear. That's one of the problems I have with a lot of the newer Samurai Warriors games is they kept them way more linear in terms of the story. Like this is what happens and this is just how it goes. Like Samurai Warriors Spirit of Sanada, it was a great game, but it was a little too linear in terms of how things went, you know, and I just miss that kind of dynamic of choice and flexibility the older ones had. So that's my favorite entry in the series personally. I think it's very underrated. Another unpopular opinion is I don't really favor Lubu in Dynasty Warriors. He's fun to use gameplay wise. He's got a cool voice actor, but he's never been one of my favorite characters in Dynasty Warriors. I think my problem with him is he's too much of a brute. He's kind of a prick, to be honest. I prefer Tadagatsu Honda in Samurai Warriors. I like how Tadagatsu Honda has honor, and he's kind of similar to like Guan Yu in Dynasty Warriors, which is why they paired him up with Guan Yu and Warriors Orochi. I just prefer Tadagatsu Honda because he's got the strength that Lubu has, but Tadagatsu Honda actually has honor, and he just doesn't feel like a mindless brute. And yeah, Lubu's just not one of my favorites in Dynasty Warriors. He's great gameplay wise, though. Another unpopular opinion of mine is I think Chuck Green is a good character. From Case Zero to Dead Rising 2, I like Chuck Green. A lot of people had issues when Dead Rising switched from Frank West to Chuck Green. They wished Frank was in part two, which is what I made off the record. But I didn't have an issue with Chuck Green. I like his design. I like his voice actor. I like the dynamic of him and his daughter. I like that he had combo weapons with him that he brought to the series. I like that he's a motocross champion. I like his voice actor. I thought he was a really cool character, and I think it was cool that Dead Rising brought in a different character. I liked him personally. I think he's an underrated character. He was really cool, and he's like the only other good main character in the Dead Rising series aside from Frank. Screw Nick Ramos and screw not what would they say, not my Frank West in Dead Rising 4. Chase was all right in the movies, though. I think I'd rather take Chase than Nick Ramos. But anyways, yeah. Another unpopular opinion. I like Dead Rising 2 more than Dead Rising 2 off the record because when you look at Dead Rising, off the record is one of the favorited ones. That's the one people say is really good. They prefer it over Part 2 because it's got Frank West and it's Dead Rising 2, but what if Frank was in there? And Dead Rising 2 off the record is a good game. It's definitely better than 3 and 4. But I personally prefer Dead Rising 2 over Dead Rising off the record because I played Dead Rising 2 first. I mean, it came out first, obviously, but it was the one that was first, and I just think it fits Chuck better. There's a lot of things I like about it more that Off the Record kind of ruined, in my opinion. And you know, Off the Record was made because a lot of people didn't like that Frank West wasn't in Dead Rising 2. Now, I always heard there was going to be a director's cut of Dead Rising 2, but I don't think they always planned having Frank West in it for a what if. And Keiji Inafune's vision was having Chuck Green in Dead Rising 2, though he shared some regret, I think, at one point in the interview, maybe having Frank in there. But Dead Rising 2 I enjoyed. I didn't have an issue with the Zombrex dynamic. I really enjoyed it. And, you know, the thing is with Dead Rising, I liked Dead Rising 1 back then, but I didn't play it as much as 2 because I was too scared of it because it was a very scary game when I was a kid. And I sucked at the game. Dead Rising 2 was easier to get into because it didn't scare me as much and it was a little bit more easy to manage difficulty wise, but I still did like Dead Rising 1. But I like Dead Rising 2 more than Off the Record because some of my problems off the record is that the looters are really annoying and off the record. They chase you, they attack your survivors, their new music is very annoying. In regular Dead Rising 2, they just stick to looting stores. They don't harass you as survivors, much prefer that. The survivors and off the record, they kind of ruined. I do like challenge when rescuing my survivors like Dead Rising 1, but even in Dead Rising 1, their health doesn't drop like crazy, even with their stupid AI, which is what I'm going to get into off the record with. And off the record, the survivors, what they did with them is that when they get grabbed and they're taking damage, their health goes down quick. I don't like that. I do not like that feature. That sucks. I also hate the fact that in certain areas, zombies will jump scare you and you got to shake them off you. I just thought that was unnecessary. I didn't understand why they put that in there. And you know, Frank West in this one, That's definitely better than the 1 and 4. But Frank's kind of, he's fat, and the clothes he wears, you know, it's it's just. I mean, there's some cool additions to off the record. Sandbox mode is really cool. Psychopath Chuck is really cool. And Heaven the Clown is pretty cool and off the record. Having Adam's brother, that was pretty awesome. Uranus Zone was cool, and Stacy was a fun boss fight. That was a nice switcher from Sullivan, but I prefer Dead Rising 2 because the looters aren't annoying. The survivor's health don't drop like crazy. There's no stupid jump scare zombies, and I prefer it. I think it fits better with Chuck than it does with Frank. But yeah, that's another unpopular opinion I wanted to share. Another one I wanted to share is greatest hits labels don't bother me. A lot of people that are game collectors, they don't really care for greatest hits labels. It bothers them, the green spine on PS1 or the gray on 360 or the red on PS3. But personally, I've just never had an issue with greatest hits labels. Whether I have the regular label or the greatest hits label, it's just never bothered me. I've never really took an issue with it personally. I don't think it's that much of a problem for me, at least. Another unpopular opinion I have is I like Xbox 360 and I put it up more than the PS2. Now, the PlayStation 2 is a good console, but it's a console that's very popular. People say it's really good, it's the best system of all time, and it's a really good system, but I actually think the Xbox 360 is better than the PS2. I think 360 was like the next level. It had a lot more games that I got introduced to than PS2, and then the Xbox Live aspect of Xbox 360, me experiencing that in the online, really propelled that console forward for me. And it is my favorite console of all time, which I should do a video eventually explaining that. But I put 360 over PS2 because, come on, 360 had Fallout 3, it had Gears of War 1, Gears of War 2, Gears of War 3, Dead Rising 1, Dead Rising 2, Left 4 Dead 1, Left 4 Dead 2, Marvel Ultimate Alliance on there. I know it was on PS2 as well, but it just had so many good games. I like the PS2, it's a great system, but I prefer 360. It was just on a whole nother level, personally, in my opinion. Another unpopular opinion to have is I liked Mind Jack. Mind Jack is a very hated game. It's deemed as one of the worst games ever. Angry Joe had a pretty, funny review of it. And I have a lot of problems with that game. I reviewed it on the channel. Some of the characters aren't the best. Some of the voice acting is bad at times, but it's still a really fun game. It's a fun third-person shooter. I didn't mind it, honestly. I had some fun with it. I thought the one character in it was really awesome. I can't remember his name, but he's friends with Jim Corbin. He's really cool. I wish he was the main character. It would help that game. The game has its problems, but I still had a blast with it. I still had a lot of fun playing it, honestly. I didn't really hate it. I found some merit with it. So that's another unpopular one. That's probably one of the biggest on here because that's a very hated game. Another one that I want to get into is I didn't like Skyrim. I've tried many times to play the Elder Scrolls 5 or V Skyrim, but I just never could get into it. I liked Oblivion. I thought Oblivion was really cool. I like the kind of sort of silly voice acting at times. I like the color that game has, the setting of it. Oblivion was really cool. But for some reason, I could just never get into Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. I don't know if it's because of the winter aesthetic or kind of the lack of color, or I don't know what it is, but trying it on 360, I've tried to get into Skyrim. I just can't get into that game. I don't know what it is. Skyrim just doesn't click for me. I just never could get into it. I don't really care about it that much, and I think it's been re-released too many times. There's plenty of other Bethesda games they could do that with. So I like Oblivion, but I just never could get into that game. Another one I'm gonna get into is I prefer Fallout 3 over Fallout New Vegas. When it comes to the Fallout games, a lot of people put New Vegas all the way up here and put it up over 3. Personally, in my opinion, I prefer Fallout 3. I don't care personally that Fallout New Vegas has a bit more choice than Fallout 3 and more in the department of that. The reason I prefer Fallout 3 is it has a much better setting. I like the Capital Wasteland a lot more than the Mojave Desert. The Mojave Desert to me just isn't as interesting as the Capital Wasteland. And plus, Fallout New Vegas just kind of feels like more of the same. It's very similar to Fallout 3 in terms of like the development, gameplay. There's some changes, but Fallout 3 I liked more. I liked the companions more. I liked I guess you consider them factions or the, Brotherhood of Steel in there. I like it more. It may not have as many choices, but that don't matter to me. I still like it more than New Vegas because setting was very important. I think a setting is really important in a game, to be honest. Because if you don't have a good setting, then that's a kind of huge. I mean, there's areas I like in Fallout New Vegas, but it just didn't hit me as much as Fallout 3. I loved Fallout 3. It blew my mind. It was the first one I played before New Vegas. I prefer it personally. Another unpopular opinion is I'm not into the Final Fantasy series. I've tried a lot of the games from that franchise, and I think when I was younger, I kind of liked Seven, and I kind of like Crisis Core and Dirge Cerberus. I think that's because I was a kid, and you're getting into games and trying things out. Taste can change. But at the age I am now, I'm not really into the series. I've tried a lot of the games. I've tried Seven, 7 Remake, I've tried 8, I've tried 10, I've tried 12, I've tried 13, I've tried 15. I'm not into the series. I just don't care for the aesthetic of it. I don't really care for the gameplay of it. It just isn't for me. The series has really good music, give it that, but I'm just not into it. Maybe one day if they'll make a Warriors type game, a Final Fantasy Dynasty Warriors, I might play that one because I like the Dynasty Warriors games, but I'm just not into those games. I don't like the style of them, to be honest with you. And that leads into another one. I'm not into Kingdom Hearts. Couldn't really get into that series. I think I played some of it when I was a kid, and I didn't hate it, but the age I am now, I'm just not really into it because, like I said, I'm not in Final Fantasy, and there's something else I'll get into soon, which adds to this. But just not really into Kingdom Hearts. Couldn't really get into the games. Just not really my thing. Though I did like some Disney stuff back in the day. Another unpopular opinion is I'm not into JRPGs, which also leads into why I didn't like those other two series I mentioned. I'm just not into JRPGs. I like regular RPGs like Fallout 3 and Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. If there's any others out there that I can't think of at the moment that I did play. But, oh yeah, Summoner. Summoner 1 was really good. I enjoyed Summoner. But I'm just not into JRPGs. I don't like the style of them. There's way too much grinding, to be honest with you. Whatever their grinding is, I just don't care for it that much. And the gameplay style I don't like, which is like the turn-based gameplay, just not into that stuff. So that's not a genre I'm really into. I know that's a very popular loved genre. And then the last unpopular opinion I'm going to get into is I'm not into the Sonic games all that much. Maybe besides Unleashed. I've tried a decent amount of the Sonic the Hedgehog games, and I'm just not really into them. I like the movies. I loved Sonic Forces, the TV show. Or no, Sonic Prime. Sonic Prime, the show was phenomenal. That was a great show. But I'm just not into the games from what I've played. I don't like how they're all speed and you just get all these collectibles. You got to beat the stage as fast as you can. I just don't like the style of it. I kind of like Sonic Unleashed though, but the copy I got was messed up, so I couldn't play it that long. But I like the sections where Sonic's a werewolf and it's a beat 'em up. I thought that was pretty cool, but I've tried a decent amount of those games. Sonic Forces, Sonic Heroes, some other ones. I'm just not into those games to be honest with you. So yeah. Well, actually, there's one more unpopular opinion I could get into that I didn't think of putting on the list that I just thought of now. The last unpopular video game opinion that I'll share for this video is I'm not into the Souls games. I've tried some of them like Bloodborne and maybe one or two of the Dark Souls. I've tried Code Vein, I've tried Neo, and the other one that was on PS4. I the title ain't coming to me at the moment, but it's not the challenge I have an issue with. I do like challenging games. I didn't have an issue with the challenge in the games. It's just I didn't enjoy them. I couldn't really get into them at all. They just weren't for me. So that's the last one I wanted to share. That is those games personally. So yeah, that's really it for this video of my unpopular video game opinions. Let me know in the comments what unpopular video game opinions you have. And yeah, that's it for this video. Peace out.